without looking back, without looking ahead, looking within, with being okay with whatever is in this very moment. You can't allow for that acceptance if you don't notice it, if you're not present with it. The point here is that this practice is vital to a more enriched life and allows us a greater capacity to show up in the best shape possible that we need to be for all those that need it, and to help shape our future moments and future interactions and future connections and ultimately our future selves. My name is Michael Shikatano, and this is Right Here, Right Now, a podcast to inspire the learner inside each of us. In a world that is full of so much information, we will help find and package that information so that you can use it in your lives every day in practical ways. And in each episode, we will remind you of the importance of being present and mindful of your daily thoughts, actions, and interactions. It is truly the most vital step to learning and growth, being mindful and present right here, right now, to take on life's challenges and turn them into life's lessons. So come on this venture with us, a new beginning, a new journey that starts right here, right now. Welcome back, people. I am Michael Shikatano, your host of Right Here, Right Now, the podcast that offers you an opportunity to take full advantage of every moment in your life. The podcast that reminds us that we must not be too harsh on ourselves in each of these moments. The greatest thing that we have for each of these moments is knowing that if we screw it up, another moment in time will be right behind it. The podcast that hopefully will tie together all of the lessons from part one of this Essence of Mindfulness mini-series here, and will pull it all together and give you practical approaches to our mindful moments. And I am excited to, again, reach out and rediscover and help us to re-explore what it means to live a more mindful life. Again, we talked a little bit about how not being too harsh, how this could seem like a very daunting task, a very overwhelming way of being every moment doing this, but it becomes more habitual, more patterned, and I think realizing how simple it can be, sometimes just even a slow, deep, mindful breath resets us, puts us right back into our focused attention, the present moment awareness. Then we see the benefits as we start doing this over and over again, and it becomes a bit more habitual, a bit more of a pattern, and a very good experience comes from each of those moments. Again, non-judgmental, self-compassion here, people. And let's get into a little bit of the practical things that we can think about, really, and explore how mindfulness really impacts our past, our present, our future. And really, as I started to go a little bit deeper with the quote, and I think I would recommend going back to part one of this series to hear what we were all talking about. The words that I came up with are: the essence of mindfulness for now is to live every moment like your next moment vitally depends upon it, because in fact it does. And in doing so, you unlock the infinite possibilities hidden within this very moment. And maybe, I talked a little bit about adding and updating. Maybe we want to say, and in doing so, you may unlock the infinite possibilities hidden within this very moment. And I think that word allows us to, again, be a little bit less harsh and a little bit less intense about what we expect from this practice. And I think, again, it's slowing us down and allowing for space and not putting too much pressure on ourselves for each of these mindfully lived moments. And so let's think about these present moments, and we're going to go through a couple of maybe practical or just even a different way of thinking about the mindful moments here. And maybe the present moment, if we think of it as a gateway, perhaps the present moment holds the key to shaping the future. And maybe we can think about exploring just practical ways, mindful exercises, yes, meditation, mindful meditation, some breath work or grounding techniques, just some things that we can think about. And you know, as I continued to prepare, as a little side note here, I continued to prepare this exact episode, and it was amazing. I put together some of this outline on my train ride into Brooklyn, and I'm literally on that train ride again, and the colors of the sky, they were just indescribable. Top down, this black night blue, then a softer sky blue, pink that turned to orange, and then orange that turned back to pink with this purple that just seemed to be envious of the stage of these other colors that were showing up. And so that this regal purple came out, and of course this yellow proudly shining just subtly enough to not be so bold as to show off that this yellow matches the source of all of these colors. Sorry for the interruption here. These were words that I put to describe a beautiful sunrise on my way to work. Kind of ironic, though, here, right? My mind might have been a little distracted by such beauty as I'm writing about a mindfully present approach to each of our moments. It's okay. I'll forgive myself for the distraction because I wouldn't have wanted to miss this beautiful sight. And I was moved by it to actually write some words to share with each of you. And maybe some of the next thoughts on mindfulness and its impact on our approach to our path in life, and just this living mindfully in uncertainty. Maybe the notion is a way we can envision how mindfulness helps us navigate moments of doubt or challenge, and that each mindfully aware choice helps to build resilience for what's next through the certainty of adversity in each of our moments. I'll repeat that. There is a level of adversity that we come to expect, hopefully not resist. And I think being mindful of those opportunities to be a little bit more agile in our responses allows for mindfulness, again, to provide us with great benefit and great insight. And how about unlocking possibilities? We touched on that a little bit. I am just enamored, really, with the idea of an infinite potential within the present moments of our lives. And maybe it's helpful. Can you think of a moment in time where you were so focused on what you were doing that you did things that you didn't think were in you to do, that you didn't think you had the capacity to do? Maybe reflect on the possibility of wielding a hidden superpower in how we can better show up with these better managed moments in time. And I think it's wonderful to kind of reflect in this way. And this is, I think, where the magic happens, and we kind of try to be mindful of what we were capable of doing, what we actually did. Some people kind of call that a state of flow. Here, I'm talking a little bit about just being more mindfully aware of what we were able to do in a moment, that we were just so mindfully focused. We were so present in the moment. We had such awareness in the moment. And I think it gives us a greater capacity to do better things. And I think it really, if I want to think about it and reflect back, it was how this podcast was born, really. I was writing and creating just thoughts on paper all day long. One day, probably about 3 years ago now, And I had been tinkering with the idea of creating a podcast, and I might actually one day dig up the notes in my notebook about the concepts that gave birth to this very show. I read them about a year ago, and it just made me think in a nostalgic way about some of the ways that I had envisioned. I think it's evolved into something really wonderful, at least for me and for the people that I've spoken to that it has impacted. I got on the computer, and about 2 hours later, I had kind of picked my head up and I had navigated the technology, the visual art, the linking to the different platforms, the recording software, and the intro was recorded and published. The thing that you hear in the beginning of each episode was done. And it was just really amazing to see it be born. And I reflected back on it then, and it's really interesting to reflect back on it now. You almost feel like you were in slow motion. And I feel like that's the essence of mindfulness. There are so many examples as you begin to get better, as you begin to do the noticing. That's what's really vital here. The benefits of slowing down, focusing, and being presently aware in each of our moments. And these practical applications, maybe we can explore some ways to better show up for our very next moments in life, right? It's a vague concept. I get it. This mindfulness, it's not easy to put our arms around. There's no real scale or meter that we're able to measure how mindful we were. And maybe with some of these practical offerings, we may be able to help ourselves integrate mindfulness into everyday life. The cycle is important. It's slowing down, it's noticing, and it's seeing what we're able to be presently aware of in our moment in time. It's not really catapulting into the future. It's not really rewinding to the past. It's really trying to get out of that mode. It doesn't mean we don't plan. It doesn't mean we don't reflect, but we just try to be more mindful about not really living in those future moments or living in those past moments, right? And again, this live every moment like your life depends on it. The quote reminds me, I mean, again, it does seem like it's daunting a task, and there's a lot of pressure there. Let this free you a little bit, knowing that your capacity to show up for every moment will give birth to a greater version, a version of you that has a higher capacity. Be patient with it. It's not overnight. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to see the before and after pictures. It's not quite like going to the gym and kind of seeing those results. It's a little bit more difficult. The mindfulness, though, helps you see those results. And the quote really reminds me a little bit of the premise of the book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. That was a great book by Kamal Ravikant. And it really, I might have to put this one on the reread list. I read it a few years ago, even though my unread pile is really piling up. The analogy really is that in his book, he offers us a practice of a repetitive mantra, really something that grounded him. And he offered us a power in telling us and telling ourselves, as he told himself in his darkest hour, that he loves himself. And he continued to declare this literally out loud over and over, again and again. The ultimate, in his words, an expression of self-love is really what he offers, actually stating it out loud, maybe really not on the middle of a crowded train, but he did have these words in this mantra, and I'll repeat them. And he wrote these words many, many times. He said these words many, many times in his life, and it impacted him and it changed his life. According to him, it literally saved his life. I love myself. 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 He offered that mantra. Maybe a bit quirky, but if you're joining us and you're on this journey and you're one of our loyal listeners and followers right here, right now, you know that being open to these different approaches is the only way we can determine what might work for us and when it may work and when we may need it for ourselves in each of our moments of self-development and self-discovery, really, right? On this journey in life. And so maybe the thought is a mantra for mindfulness here is that we can maybe adopt some set of words to enhance the ability and capacity of our mind to drop into the present moment with a deliberately settling spirit for the exact present moment and for all of our upcoming present moments. Another tool, maybe minder, really, to be mindful in this very moment. And so we know the power of the breath, or at least we get reminded of the power of the breath every time we wield its power. A mindfully drawn in cycle of breathing, perhaps as we gently offer a mantra to ourselves in this moment. And maybe it's be present, be mindful, be present, be mindful, be present, be mindful. And again, you might want to repeat these words. You might want to get something else to get your mind to just drop in. I would suggest you don't need to say these out loud. You can if you want. I sort of breathe them in and breathe them out, if that makes any sense. Maybe it could be right here, right now, right here, right now. And again, these words sound nice to me, perhaps a little wonky at first. I agree. Maybe in a moment of stillness and calm, you can quietly whisper these words to yourself or any words that you really think. Again, along with the deep and nourishing cycles of breathing, really, I think that they could be different words, completely different. Whatever it is, I really think the practice is, it really just should be a way that allows you to drop into your very own present moment. And that mantra, these words just serve as a cue for us, a way of reminding ourselves of how to drop into the stillness of this moment. Maybe just to clear out the noise a little bit, just a way to come back to the moment in the midst of a busy and frenetically paced moments that just kind of seem to string together and then just go on and on and on. And this is just sort of like a little bit of a way to just snap our way out of that mindless existence, right? And really, they just serve as a reminder of why this exact moment is so important to us, right? Again, without looking back, without looking ahead, looking within, with being okay with whatever is in this very moment. You can't allow for that acceptance if you don't notice it, if you're not present with it. The point here is that this practice is vital to a more enriched life and allows us a greater capacity to show up in the best shape possible that we need to be for all those that need us, and to help shape our future moments and future interactions and future connections, and ultimately our future selves. And then it's lather, rinse, repeat. It really does take some practice. It really does take a lot of noticing. And sometimes I like to pause and reflect and ask myself, why is it so difficult some of the time to be more mindfully aware and engaged in our present moments? I think, and I kind of mentioned it a little earlier, but I think we'll get into it a little bit more here. I think it has to do with the concept of resistance. We may be working against our present moments rather than working with them. We don't know we're doing this. Again, it's just a pattern. It's a habit. It's a way that we just kind of just fly through life. And would it matter if we change the perspective or the context here to partnering up with our moments in time, having our moments, every one of them, be our ally? Knowing that our level of consciousness in our relationship with the moments on our clocks can be more harmonious and less restrictive This is perhaps more about letting go of the control we think we have on our time, right? I feel like we are perpetually fighting against time, this resistance, a fight we know we have no chance of winning, but we forget this. And perhaps it's a subconscious struggle, fighting against the clock here, holding on too tightly to various moments in time, past and present, and even future moments we have not yet even experienced. We're holding on, observing our moments in an objective manner, like time floating by, right? Like watching our emotions come and go as they arise, like puffy white clouds in the sky. It's a great analogy used in the mindful meditation world. This can be liberating and inspiring for us to be better prepared and equipped to show up for our next moment with less attachment and more attention, less expectation and more energy, less fixation and more focus, less constraint and more conscious awareness. And imagining that we are somehow able to, or that we continue to attempt to control or manipulate time seems absurd or ridiculous when we say these words out loud, right? But perhaps this is what we are doing without being aware of it. Is this again another mindlessly contrived reaction to our lives that we're blind to and blinded by as we whirl through our worlds? But as the saying that we used with my younger son when he was little goes, we used to say, the timer always wins. And that clock stops and waits for no one, people. It is blind to who we are and deaf to what we need. And listen, we can't hit pause no matter the cause, not even for a second. And I'm just grabbing a few lines that I'm thinking about from my poem Moments that will likely follow this very episode, maybe tomorrow or the next day following the publication of this episode. And I like to think of those creative outlet poems that turn into episodes for each and every one of you as more than a bonus episode. Maybe they are booster episodes, boosting you and propelling you a bit more mindfully into the subject matter at hand. It's a short one, but it's impactful on our journey to reflect on the purpose in each and every moment in our lives, right? A way to slow down and immerse ourselves into a creative atmosphere to grab a moment of stillness for ourselves. And excited to share this next one with you. And I received some feedback that sometimes the poems might even be best shared in written form. So I will likely begin publishing them on my website. The link will be in the show notes. It often is to the website. And I thought it might be a really nice, a different way to share the poems and maybe even some of the episodes once the transcripts are transcribed, to share the written word for these episodes. Might just be a different mode of sharing and absorbing the messages here. So stay tuned and look out for that. And again, inspired from the quote that inspired this episode, and so it goes, right? And this is where we may sort of meet the magic or wield our power by allowing our purpose and the pursuit of our purpose, whatever that is, right? The why in our lives, as Simon Sinek so elegantly put it, to engage with our present moment awareness. That's what might allow our why to really be vitalized or revitalized. If we use this very moment to be primed for our purpose, aligned with our values, aligned with a vision of who we can be in each of our moments in time. And when these things reconcile, people, there is harmony in our world. Harps playing even, and we are becoming masters of our moments, moment by moment, right? That allow us a greater capacity to reach our highest potential. And so I leave you with this. We must be caretakers of our clocks, of our moments, and provide the necessary yet gentle touch with time that will allow us to better experience and engage with our moments, living each of those moments with a gentle awareness that each moment in time, when experienced with a level of confidence and clarity and awareness and purpose, can bring us to a more connected and meaningful moment that follows this exact moment in time. We don't forget our past. We are grateful for how it has served us. If we have been more present in those past moments, this will be easier to embody. And this is what we will have to look forward to, that a more mindfully lived moment now will become a more connected moment in time to our future selves then. One lived with less regret and more peace, less remorse and more clarity, less resistance and more acceptance, a more mindful memory that we can employ the lesson and message it was intended to serve us with. Right here, right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to share the message and these episodes. If any of these messages found within each episode impacts you in any way, then I am humbly requesting that you please send this to just one other person. Again, stay tuned for the booster episode, right? The Moments poem to bring some stillness in your world. And I hope to get some of these writings up on the website soon as a different way to share. And again, I leave you with this guidance here. Take a slow, deep, nourishing breath and repeat these words along with me. Be present, be mindful, right here, right now. We'll see you next time, people. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, right here, right now.